What's up, everyone? This is Lucas Ross Sports, and it's time for my college football playoff top 4 standings after week number 2 of the 2022 college football season. Last week, I gave you the top 4 teams. They were pretty much Georgia, Alabama. We had also Ohio State and Clemson. There's pretty much a big change here in the top 4 standings this week after week number 2. Week number 2 is a wide open weekend. Saw a bunch of upsets and also a bunch of close games that were not meant to be close. But pretty much all these top 4 teams, they're pretty much almost the same. But there is a new number 4 seed. I'll get to that in just a minute. But let's start with our standings here for the top 4. Basically, this video, how this works, this is simply a projection based off of those top 4 teams. And basically, if the college football playoff were to happen tomorrow or maybe tonight, this is how the standings would look after a week of the college football season. So let's get started here with the bracket, and here it is. And you see the games here. The semifinals will be held at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, and then the other semifinal will be held at the Fiesta Bowl, the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. So pretty much how this works, this is simply not a projection. This is simply just what I think will happen here for the college football playoff if these games were to happen maybe tomorrow or maybe tonight. So let's start with the number 1 seed for the overall college football playoff, and who will be playing in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And that number 1 seed is going to be Georgia. Georgia coming off a couple big wins in the first 2 weeks of the 2022 season. First Oregon, at Atlanta, and then of course they beat Samford last week. And, Georgia's offense is just really explosive. When I saw with the offense from last week, and the week before, Georgia's offense has been really good for the first couple weeks of the 2022 season. And if you saw last week, after what I made a projection with the national championship, I did project Georgia would win it. And, if I was going to make a prediction on it in the national championship game, and you saw I picked Georgia to win, because I think Georgia's offense was just much better than Alabama's. And I think Georgia is clearly the number 1 team here after week number 2 of the 2022 season. And also, Georgia has got the most dangerous offense right now. I'm saying that right now. They look like they have the most dangerous offense in the country. Let's go to the number 2 seed. And also, Georgia is number 1 in the AP poll, so that's why I had them at number 1 as well. Let's go to the number 2 seed, who will be playing in the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, and that is going to be Alabama at number 2. Now, number 2 was a pretty close call between Ohio State and Alabama. I think Alabama, the way they played a Division I school, they still considered to be the number 2 seed. I don't think people will agree on that one, though. But they did play against a tough game against Texas this past weekend. What a game that was. What a finish that was. Alabama survived that one. I really did not expect Alabama to, come back in this game. And, I like the confidence of Bryce Young. I mean, I like how he was so confident at the end of that game. And I don't know how he was able to finish that game out and still win it. But Alabama's number 2. I mean, pretty much they had a tough time against Texas, and, they made a lot of mistakes in that game. The offensive line struggled. The defense kind of struggled as well. And this defensive line for Texas holded Alabama's offense to really just 20 points, and that's pretty much the lowest scoring Alabama score I think I've seen in a long time under the Nick Saban era. And then you have, of course, the penalties were a big issue for Alabama. And that's going to have to be fixed up. They do get an easy opponent this weekend, so they should clean those up. Let's go to the number 3 seed. If these games were to happen tonight, who will Alabama play in the Fiesta Bowl? And that's going to be Ohio State. Ohio State at number 3. They're coming off a big win against Arkansas State. They're coming off a couple wins to begin the year. I mean, Notre Dame was just an 11-point win, but then you had the big win over Arkansas State. The offense looked much better last week than it did the week before. So I think Ohio State's offense has still got a long way to go in order to fix it up. They do have an easy opponent in Toledo this weekend, so they'll maybe get better a little bit. I mean, they're pretty much the top offense in the country right now, or maybe the top offense in the Big Ten Conference, I should say. But if these games were to happen tonight, it would be Alabama versus Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. Let's go to the number 4 seed. who will play Georgia in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl if this game were to happen, and that's going to be Michigan. So Michigan's my new number 4 seed. Last week I had Clemson at number 4 just because they played a Division I school. I really disagreed with Michigan playing, not a Power 5 school. Looking at Michigan, though, in the first couple weeks, they've scored 50 points in both of their games, more than 50 points in both of their games with their, early non-conference schedule. I mean, Michigan's got a really good stretch in the month of September. They play UConn this weekend. I think, it's going to be another big-time win for them. But you never know what can happen. We saw that last week with all these upsets. But it would be Georgia versus Michigan in the Peach Bowl. And that's pretty much a rematch from last year's semifinal game. And I think it's going to kind of look like that if it were to happen in the semifinal. Now let's give you a projection here. It's Georgia versus Michigan in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Alabama versus Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. And all these top 4 teams you're seeing right now are pretty much neck and neck. And also, they're the top 4 teams in the AP poll. Let's start with the Georgia versus Michigan game here in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. I'm going to pick Georgia to win it. I think Georgia pretty much was the better offense in week number 1 and also week number 2. But don't get me wrong, Michigan is a great team, but, if this game were to happen, I would pick Georgia to win this one. I just think their offense is kind of better than Michigan. I think Georgia would pretty much, get past this Michigan defense. But looking at both of these defenses, they're pretty even as well. They had to really repeat after it, but I think Georgia's defense is much better than Michigan's. I think Georgia's defense has got enough to hold off of this Michigan offense and not let them score if this game were to happen. Let's go to the Alabama versus Ohio State Fiesta Bowl game. If I was going to make a prediction on this one, I would pick Ohio State. I think Ohio State's offense was much better than Alabama's last weekend, and I think Ohio State would move on to the national championship game if this game were to happen. Just because how Alabama played against Texas, I think Ohio State just was the better, offense this week, and also they had more points than Alabama. Yes, Ohio State had more points than Alabama if Alabama was going to be ranked number 3, but Ohio State, I think they still win this one if this game were to happen as well. But Alabama still is number 2 in my favorite, so it is Georgia versus Ohio State now in the national championship game if this game were to happen in the later part of the year. And if I was going to make a prediction on this one, which I'm going to here, but I'm going to go with Georgia. I think they do win it here, in this national championship game if it were to happen. And if you saw last week in my week 1, top 4 standings, I did pick Georgia to win it all. And it is exactly the same kind of thing, but just different, number 4 seed and a different number 2 seed. But Georgia, obviously the top team, from last weekend, and they're pretty much the top team in the AP poll as well. And Georgia clearly has the better offense than all these other 3 teams. That's what I think I saw from last week. So that concludes my top 4 standings for after week number 2 of the 2022 college football season. If this college football playoff were going to happen tonight or maybe tomorrow, but give me your thoughts down in there, and I'll do another week after that one. And stay tuned here for more on Lucas Ross Sports.